I'm the Oak Witch here on YouTube, and today's video is going to be a best book recommendations for the Green Witch. Now, I don't really like using terms like Green Witch, but for the sake of this video I'm going to use it to describe a type of witchcraft that incorporates plants, trees, flowers, herbs, things that come from nature, and working with those natural energies in your craft. So I'm basically going to describe what books I think will complement that type of practice best and how it can help you when developing that green witchcraft. Starting with a more broad book recommendation. I live in Britain, so this book I'm recommending would be for witches in the UK perhaps, and this is DKs Pocket Nature Wildlife of Britain. Doesn't say an author, but it's just DK is quite a popular publishing company, so it's very sort of informational, like textbook based book. So in here is information about wildlife in Britain, and it's very informational and ecological. There's information about what obviously it looks like, where you can find them, what forms, plant height, flower size, the flowering time of year, similar species, the fruit if any, yes. And it's not just plants either, there's fungi, and there's some trees, and there's birds, invertebrates, fish, mammals. Yeah, it encompasses wildlife in a very broad sense. So I think a book like this is really good for green witchcraft because, to put it simply, it literally helps you identify the nature around you. So find something that makes sense for your local area and take it with you on walks, or just read through it every now and then. I find myself actually being able to spot more things out in nature because of the times I've just flipped through it just out of interest. And yeah, I think having that baseline ecological knowledge when working with plants I think is really useful, and it's especially useful when you go foraging, which I think green witches and witches in general should be doing. Knowing your local wildlife and your local plants is such a great way to connect to the earth, and actually it's far more practical than bulk buying things that are getting shipped over from whatever country. I think something like this is just so useful for your practice. So that's my first recommendation. So once you know your nature physically, you can move on to magically getting to know your herbs with a classic. This is on every beginner witch recommendations book, but specifically for green witchcraft, I think this is just a great book to have. Like I said, it's a classic. It includes so many plants. It also goes through quite a lot of magical properties, for example, folk names, gender, if you're into that, planets, elements, associated deities, powers, ritual uses and magical uses. I think this is just a really good book. It's such a good reference guide as well. I always find myself coming back to this for like a refresher. If I just need to quickly look up something, I'm like, oh yes, that plant does that, and then it's something that definitely helps as well, complementing just generally plant magic research. Having this book as a baseline and then going further in the research I think is really useful. So yes, everyone recommends this, and so am I, because it's really, really useful. So this book is pretty much found anywhere to my knowledge. I think you'd struggle to not find this book, so check your local witchy bookstore, check online witchy bookstores, and if you've exhausted your sort of local business witchy options, it's probably on Amazon. So this next book is actually a really recent release, and it is also a encyclopedia of magical herbs, but specifically traditional and folklore use of plants. And this is Treadwell's Book of Plant Magic by Christina Oakley Harrington. Now, if you don't know, Treadwell's is a esoteric and occult bookshop in London. They also do a lot of events and workshops, and it is just an amazing place. If you're ever in London, go to Treadwell's. It's a beautiful shop. They've also recently refurbished it, but it's just a great place full of great witchy people. And they also have an online store, which I'll link below. So yes, I bring it up because that's how you can get this book, through the Treadwell's site, because I'm pretty sure it's published through there, so I'm not sure if you can get it anywhere else actually. I think you'd have to get it through Treadwell's. But it's really worth it because this book is amazing. It really is just wonderful. Christina has done such a good job. She's a lovely lady, and this book is just well researched. It includes, I think, European plants, but you'll still find plants that you definitely work with if you just live outside of Europe, like bay, basil, pine, you know, just some trees as well, like fir and hawthorn. I'm trying to like flick through them. There's oak on here, which is, you know how I feel about oak. There's mugwort, thyme. Yeah, I think you'll definitely find things that you work with. But yeah, what I really also love about this book, that it details a lot of traditional spells and charms, which is just really, really interesting to me. That's the kind of herbal magic that I really like. So yeah, it's in an encyclopedia based like format as well, which is really useful when you're searching through herbs as like a reference guide. So yes, I can't recommend this enough. A honourable mention that I'm currently going through it, I wouldn't recommend it because I haven't finished it, but Under the Brabel Arch by Corinne Boyer, and this was published by Troy Books, and one, it's a beautiful book, oh my gosh, look at this cover, but it's also full of really interesting information, and again it is complementing that traditional folk herbal magic, which I really like. But yeah, there's less content, so I think there's only like 20 herbs in here. What's really great about this book is that she includes a lot of overlooked herbs, like I guess ones that people consider weeds, like thistle, dandelion perhaps, stinging nettle, and how you can use that in your practice. So I just thought I'd mention that as an honourable mention. So this next one is another encyclopedia, and this is the Encyclopedia of Herbal Medicine by Andrew Chevalier. And this is really heavy, so I'm not going to hold it like that anymore, but it is a great encyclopedia. But I think in terms of encyclopedias as a great sort of style of book to have for the Green Witch, they're obviously great reference guides. I think it's a great way to sort of establish that baseline informational knowledge, whether it be in herbal medicine or magical properties or ecological information. It's a great place to begin and to get that sort of sapling knowledge, and then actually use it to do further research, establish different sources, and then you'll find your information just growing into a lovely big tree. But anyway, and then you can use these type of books to actually go back into as like a reminder, refresher. So yes, my next recommendation, I guess, is centered around herbal medicine. And I think herbal medicine is a great topic for Green Witches to research because, you know, people used to use plants, you know, our old witches, cunning folk, and our ancestors used plants in healing ways, and this includes herbal medicine. And of course, don't deny scientific modern medicine, please. That's not what Green Witchcraft and herbalism is about. Just don't do that. But learning about how plants can be used for healing, one, is a great way to actually use them in your magic, but also it's just really interesting. It gives you a well-rounded idea of how the plant has been used in history, in different cultures, in folklore, and actually how you can sort of still use them, you know, for healing ways. And this book includes 550 plants. That's a lot. That is, like, it's really heavy, so like it's a lot of information in here. And that's why I'm recommending specifically this book. There are loads of great herbal medicine books, but specifically this one I found to be really well laid out. You know, it looks really pretty, the information is easy to read, and it includes research, traditional current uses. It even includes habitat cultivation of the plant. So I think it's really, really useful. Another really great thing about this book is at the back there is base recipes for certain things like tonics or oils or tinctures, creams, just general preparations of herbs, which again is really great for spell crafting and spell working. You can definitely use these base recipes and then actually put a magical pizzazz onto them. So yeah, I actually think this is a really good book, really worth the money. So in terms of availability for this book, it's DK, so it's a really popular publishing company, and I think you'd be able to find it anywhere. Like, just Google it. I'm sure your local book store will probably sell something like this, if not this book, and again, it's probably just on Amazon, if all else fails. Two honourable mentions I'm going to quickly talk about. One is a book, but also a free online website called A Modern Herbal by Mrs. M. Grieve. I'll link it below, but it is a well-respected classic resource for herbal medicine and herbalism in general. It is huge. It's a huge database. There's loads of plants on there, but it is also a bit old. There's outdated language that I've come across, but it's still really good to complement just general research you're doing. So that's an honourable mention. Another one is The Heritage Herbal by Sonia Patel Ellis. I really like this book. I think, yeah, there's 35 herbs in here. She includes recipes, not just like home remedies, but also stuff like rosehip syrup, you know, culinary practices. She uses mint, jasmine, saffron, chamomile. I remember seeing like a lavender dream pillow recipe in here, which I thought was funny because this isn't like a witchcraft book, but you can clearly like use some of the recipes for your witchcraft. So also, it's a beautiful book. So actually, I really recommend this. And in terms of availability for that book, I am not too sure. I got this at like a garden store, like a garden home store, so maybe it's online, probably on Amazon. But yes, the final book on my top 5 recommendations for the Green Witch, I'm recommending a bit begrudgingly. Happily, I think is a valid recommendation, but I say it with like great caution. This is The Green Witch by Aaron Murphy Hiscock. And it's not a bad book. I begrudgingly put this on my top 5 because I don't like the beginning, essentially. I think it tries to push green witchcraft as a tradition too much. And using terms like the Green Witch, I think is too labelling. I think it limits you too much. And green witchcraft, I just don't think is a tradition, it's just a type of practice. And perhaps I'm being too rigid in those opinions, but little things like, for example, Aaron Murphy Hiscock explains that obviously green witchcraft has no religion. There's no ethical rules or any just general rules, but they also include an oath of the Green Witch and prayer of the Green Witch, and then include terms like Lord and Lady, which to me sounds very Wiccan. So it doesn't make sense to me to have those things. So my recommendation of this book is to focus heavily on the later chapters, specifically the chapters Create and Craft Green Witch Magic. Also Attune Yourself to Nature, that chapter, because it goes through literally how to attune yourself to nature, you know, using perhaps your senses, but also exercises, like energy exercises, meditation, using the elements. That is something obviously that's really valuable to know, and this book does explain it well. What I really liked about this book anyway is that Aaron Murphy Hiscock goes through crafts like making herbal incense, pillows, spell bags, garden stepping stones. It's just a really good way to know like how to use your plants and herbs. Because I think once you've established, for example, you've established the magical properties, you've established knowledge of the ecological information of the plants, and then you've established the herbal medicine and that approach. But now you're thinking, oh well, like what practices do I actually do? Like what spells and spell methods do I actually perform? This book I think is good at giving you a sort of like idea and inspiration, you know, so that's why I'm recommending this book. It's a really popular book, you'd be able to find it, there's loads of places you can find it online. It's not terrible, like I don't think it's a bad book, I just wouldn't want to recommend it with my like opinion that I agree with 100% in this book, because I don't. But yes, another two things I want to add in terms of approaching green witchcraft and working with plant energies is when you're working with plants, of course, whether or not you believe in working with baneful magic or not, I think you have to respect that there are baneful plants in nature. Nature is not just positive love and light, nature is also dark, it's brutal, and with life comes death. So I think it's useful to know toxic plants, fungi, you know, whatnot, poisonous and baneful workings, because you need to respect it. So that's another thing. That's why books like this, identification ecological books, are really good, because they describe, for example in the fungi section, they describe which ones are edible and which ones, you know, are toxic. They tell you. So I think it's good to at least know it, whether or not you're going to work with it. That is your decision. Another thing I wanted to mention is that a really good way to work with natural energies is working with the seasons. And I didn't want to recommend any books about that in this video, because it's really heavily dependent on where you are, your climate, generally the seasons that you experience in your country. So that will be a separate video for me, that will be a separate book recommendations thing, but of course it's really useful to work with the seasons, the seasonal festivals, and that's one way you can sort of use plants and use the earth's nature, like, and natural energies in your practice. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed these book recommendations. I hope this was useful to you. I have always really enjoyed working with natural energies in my craft. I really like herbal magic, so I just wanted to give people a sort of idea of how to begin. These specific books have helped shape my knowledge and really given me that all-encompassing approach. So I hope that they would do the same to you as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you liked this video, give it a like maybe. And yeah, so see you next time. Bye!